let me ask this because I think this is the purest example of this. So I think it would be immoral to hang photographs downtown of excrement. Now, of course, those are completely harmless in the empirical, like they have no pathogens. They're
Yeah.
just disgusting.
Yeah.
And my claim would be the fact that they repel me is enough for me to morally condemn that because no significant gain to the community. I mean, I guess one could say it's a postmodern work, masterpiece or something.
Yeah,
I
I would
would
agree with you that there's no reason to hang pictures of excrement up. Although
okay.
I also think that like disgusting people, you know, uh, I mean, this is something that I do that hopefully doesn't sound too braggy. Like, let's say I go to a women's toilet and
Mhm.
like there's pee all over the seat. I'll wipe up the pee because I know that it bothers me not at all, and it'll bother the next person that comes a lot,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care at all, and I'm gonna wash my hands anyway, so it doesn't matter. And so I think that yeah, to think about, the average disgust sensitivity of people and that grossing people out is in some sense wrong, but I think that you're using a utilitarian reasoning for that. And I do think that it's one of my criticisms of people who are usually against utilitarian reason is that they often fall back on it. So I don't know if you would say you're not a utilitarian unless you use utilitarianism in every context, but
Mhm.
I'm kind of a rationalist and I'm a utilitarian, and I think it's wrong to hang up pictures of excrement because it makes people feel bad for no reason, for no good reason, right?
Yes, so I agree with your criticism of my position, and I would just argue that I often resort to utilitarianism in debates because I think it's a language that
Everybody speaks.
allows, yeah, yeah, exactly. Even if the actual underlying moral system is not justified through utilitarian reasoning. However, then I want to ask this question because I think one thing I think many utilitarians do is they claim to be utilitarian, but then they sort of rule out the disgust response. So, suppose that we inhabited a community in 1670 in
Mhm,
which people found homosexuality not only disgusting, but in fact an abomination against God. And
mhm.
it would, in fact, cause people uh, incredibly deep and honest loathing and misery seeing and knowing that other people were engaging in homosexual behavior. I think if you were a utilitarian, you might have to contend that, in fact, some kind of public, at least public prohibition on homosexual affection
Yeah.
would be reasonable and justified from the utilitarian perspective.
Yeah. I also think that people's problem with utilitarian is largely disgust based. If you think about like all of the different repugnant conclusions, right? There's a
Yes.
there's a there's a few different repugnant conclusions, but what's the story called? Those who walked away from Omelas. I can't remember what the. Have you heard of this, Bo?
No, I'm not familiar with this.
So it's like a long. I think it's an Ursula Le Guin story, but
Okay.
the gist of it is everybody in a society lives happily. Everybody's having a great time. It's
Mhm.
all made possible by one child being tortured in a dark room.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's also kind of the repugnant conclusion is, for population. So if you look at something like, why do people have a problem with Peter Singer? It's
Yes.
because of a variety of disgusting things that he's said.
Yes.
So, for example, that it's okay to kill a newborn,
Mhm.
or that it's okay to have sex with animals in some contexts. For example, um, the what is it called? The Jonathan Haidt thing, moral
Narr
dumbfounding.
Yeah.
So the moral dumbfounding uh, cases that Jonathan Haidt comes with are very interesting because they
Mhm.
pit our rational faculties against disgust sensitivity. So there's a few of them. I'll just rattle off a couple of them. A man, and I've given these to my students, so I've actually heard a lot of very funny utilitarian responses to them. A man goes and he buys a rotisserie chicken. It was originally a raw chicken, but you could say that would cause salmonella. So now it's a rotisserie chicken. He takes the
Right.
rotisserie chicken home. He has sex with it, and then he
Yeah.
eats it. Was this wrong?
Right.
And like obviously, there's nothing wrong. The chicken's already dead. The chicken's been cooked. There's no salmonella. Another one is Megan and Frank. are a brother and sister. They think it would be fun and exciting to make love. They have the exact right wording down there. She's on birth control, but he uses a condom anyway. They have sex. No one knows about it. They don't tell anybody. They don't feel bad about it. And they decide that it's made them even closer, but they've also
Mhm.
decided not to tell anybody else. So
Right.
the little thought experiments that Jonathan Haidt comes up with try and cover all the bases of what somebody's reaction could be. And the moral dumbfounding, if somebody says it's wrong, really they have to always operate on the basis of disgust.
So, so I think it's interesting because I think people's reaction to these thought experiments tells us more about what we expect from public discourse than people's moral reasoning.
Oh, that's
Because
interesting.
in the case of, for example, the chicken, I think people just think it's disgusting. It's repellent. It's a
Yeah.
misuse of like sexual organs or something, right? But the thing is, we realize that in a public debate, we really can't make that claim. So
Uh-huh.
we reach in the toolbox of our mind for a different claim that seems more legitimate publicly. Now, I would say in the incest case, I think that's a bad thought experiment because, in fact, it would sort of be like say, asking this question: "Oh, like John does this thing that could be really dangerous, and in most contexts, it would be dangerous, but in
Uh-huh.
this one, it's not dangerous. Is it wrong?" And it's
Uh-huh.
like, well, yeah, but incest is often, I mean, you are taking a risk. There are all kinds of potentially pernicious consequences of incestual sexual relations. And
Mhm.
so I think that is in some ways, it's like an unfair thought experiment. Furthermore,